Welcome back to Continental Club Xtra, the show where we show Premier League fans what they're missing. Joining me today is Patrick Van Straten. How are we doing?
I'm very well. How are you, McCubs?
Not too bad, not too bad. Raring to go for this José Mourinho special. We actually haven't spoken about José for a little while, I feel, on this channel. And this comes after their 3-1 defeat to Atalanta last night in Serie A, which leaves them 5th in the table. Obviously, Juve getting their points deduction, cleaned off, leaving them in 3rd now. So the top 4 race is super tight. Level on points with Milan, who have now snuck into 4th, and Inter just behind them in 6th. Atalanta making up some ground with that win as well. So today we are looking at Mourinho's Roma and his future potentially, because there is talk of PSG, Real Madrid interested in him potentially in the summer. But Pat, let's first look at his 2 years at Roma, because they have been a moderate success, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I mean, obviously, the Conference League and going great guns in the Europa this term, real statement win the other day against Feyenoord, and now they face a pretty tough matchup against Xabi Alonso's Bayer Leverkusen. But I think they have gradually improved during his time there. This season, we've actually seen what looks like a kind of vintage Mourinho side in a way. They've got this one superstar attacker up front, Dybala, who's leading them. They've got the best defence in Serie A by expected goals against. And I think they're probably a little bit unlucky to be as low as they are. The underlying numbers suggest they're actually the 3rd best side in the league. Lazio have been massively overperforming, and Juve, it looks like they will end up with some points deduction. It's not like this is never going to come back, it's just being appealed. Well, if that decision comes in time, it will affect Juventus this season, and it could see Roma sneak into the top 4. If it doesn't come in time, it will happen next season, and Mourinho's side will probably be the team that kind of pay the forfeit. So I do think that underlying performances have been getting better. But what's interesting is this question of what's going on with his contract. It seems like there aren't really clear lines of communication between the manager and the club. And with some interesting vacancies coming up this summer, it'll be interesting to see what Mourinho himself is angling for, because he's always working an angle.
Yeah, absolutely. And none more so than in, when it comes to signings, when it comes to the transfer market. I mean, he's been, throughout his time at Roma, there's always been that, sense of not quite getting the players I want, isn't there? And I think this could potentially be a reason why he would leave in the summer. He's obviously a contract until 2024, but Roma are still under quite a strict financial fair play settlement agreement, partly due to Monchi's kind of £200+ million spend during his time as sporting director, the fact that they haven't been in the Champions League for over 4 years now. And last summer, of course, was a symptom of that, wasn't it? Matic, Wijnaldum, Belotti and Dybala, all either frees or loan signings. I think only Sampdoria and Lecce actually spent less than them in the 2022 summer window. So Champions League qualification, I feel like, could be pivotal this year, not only for their prospects financial fair play wise, but in terms of Mourinho's future there. Does Mourinho want to stay at a club which he has, like you say, Pat, improved, especially on the defensive end, has got them playing some really interesting football this season as well? Does he want to stay there if it's another season without Champions League football, if it's another season where he's not really going to be able to improve the side significantly, and especially if, without Champions League football, someone like Paulo Dybala might have his head turned. There's that very cheap release clause in his contract, isn't there? If Dybala did want to leave, then Roma would be pretty powerless to keep him. And also Tammy Abraham had a bit of a down year, but with centre forwards in high demand this summer, wouldn't be that surprised if a suitor came in for him as well.
Yeah, I agree about that. And I mean, I guess there are some signs in the squad use that maybe Mourinho has his issues. So Nikola Zalewski, the 21-year-old Polish defender, or wing-back, I suppose we should say, he's got about 1,700 minutes this season. Well, it's possible that Mourinho just really likes this player. Sometimes he does really like young players and use them. But quite often when Mourinho uses a young player, it is a bit of a protest.
McTominay.
It's him making a very clear point, him saying, well, if this is what you're going to give me, then I will do my best with it, but I'm not happy. And frankly, like, if you want the team to improve, you need to go and invest. On the other hand, that summer, last summer, is a very Mourinho summer.
Yeah,
you know, Belotti was in quite a lot of demand as a backup centre forward. Matic, obviously Mourinho's taken from club to club. Dybala, you can't turn your nose up at that. Even Wijnaldum, I could see Mourinho doing that basically anywhere. And I do think, you know, the money they've spent on the squad, some of the players they bought aren't bad. It's just that I think there was never a fully worked out plan. So there are guys who are built for a 3 at the back system, like Spinazzola. There are guys who are built to play 2 up top, which is really what Dybala is built for. But then they've had other guys kind of come in, and you say, "What's the plan?" and they're immediately ditched, like Shomurodov, who's now on loan at Spezia. You know, it just feels like they're trying things, they don't work out. They're trying things, they don't work out. I think that Mourinho has done a good job there. I think that if another club comes in for him this summer, while I am saying that they are better under the hood than they look, I wouldn't really worry about losing him. I think it's okay because Mourinho is always there for a good time, not a long time. So I think you're going to have to be thinking about what comes next anyway. And what comes next for Roma is going to have to be really gutting this squad, which Mourinho has done a bit of. Shaved 20 million supposedly off the wage bill, which is pretty impressive stuff for Mourinho. Shave even more if he leaves. So I think that that's really the main work at Roma over the next few years, trying to stay in touch with the top 4 while rebuilding the squad pretty radically, because it's not young, right?
No, I think it's the 4th oldest in Serie A. And, you know, yeah, someone like Zalewski is obviously very young, but by far the youngest player, kind of, or by far the youngest regular starter in that side. Obviously, you know, yeah, like Matic, Wijnaldum, Chris Smalling, 33 years old, Rui Patricio, 35 years old. So yeah, there is a lot. Yeah, really bad season. So yeah, there is a lot of work to do, and obviously under the Friedkin Group ownership, who still, you know, I think, you know, Mourinho was obviously a big statement from them, but, you know, still have, you know, a lot of work to do to really stamp their image on the club. And yeah, I kind of agree. You know, I think Mourinho's got them to a good point, but there is not, you know, there's not a lack of managerial talent in Serie A as we've seen this season. And yeah, I feel like it might be one of those things where it gets to the point this summer where, at least if they don't make the Champions League, I'm not sure what Mourinho can do more at Roma, and I'm not sure what more Roma can offer him. So let's get into the potential, you know, destinations this summer. Let's start with PSG, because obviously Christophe Galtier massively in hot water at the moment. Investigation over those alleged emails that he sent while at Nice. I feel like maybe whatever happens, he's probably going to be out this summer, and they're going to be looking for a new manager. What were your first thoughts on the idea of Mourinho to PSG, Pat?
It feels like an idea that's been beamed in from 2014.
Yeah.
You know, to me, it doesn't make a huge amount of sense. Well, that's not true. I can see the argument, which is that actually, when you look at the best PSG sides, they have been the sides where somebody has had either the personality or the gravitas to really stand up to that squad. So Tuchel, he wasn't actually a huge name when he took the job, but a great tactician and clearly a bit of a dictator in the dressing room. And the other really great PSG side that I think we've seen was the Ancelotti PSG side, where Ancelotti is just impossible to argue with. He's undeniable as a player because of everything that he's done. But also what those guys offer is they're sensible. So I think Mourinho would come in, he'd have the kind of aura around him that would maybe get some of these players in line. And let's remember as well that Messi might leave this summer, which is, you know, one ego fewer to deal with. But also Mourinho's not going to do anything stupid with that team. He's not going to try and do some ridiculous fancy tactical system that leaves them exposed in the latter stages of the Champions League. Mourinho's going to build a solid defence, and then he's going to park Neymar and Mbappe on the top of it, which is a completely sensible thing to do at this stage. I mean, I've no problem with that at all. So from that point of view, I could see him being very useful in the latter stages of the Champions League, Whether their performances would be particularly good in Ligue 1, I think is kind of hard to say. And how he would deal with, say, Neymar, maybe finding himself injured at roughly the same time every year, or whether he would, and how he would deal with Mbappe, who does seem to pretty much have no checks whatsoever on what he thinks he should be allowed to do. I don't know. I could see it blowing up very, very quickly. It just, I don't know. In the Luis Campos PSG era, I'm not sure that it's the most obvious one. Like Galtier to PSG, Galtier to Mourinho is just such a strange transition.
Yeah, especially in terms of name, isn't it? I mean, in terms of playing style, maybe not so much, but yeah, I kind of feel like at some point, for some reason, it makes sense to me. It feels like, I don't think it would necessarily be the right choice for PSG, but it feels like Mourinho has been destined to go there at some point, in terms of this club that has been desperate to win the Champions League every single season, has tried so many different managers. Mourinho, has a 2 to 3 year lifespan at most. It kind of makes sense in some ways that PSG are once again at more of a crossroads, I think, at the moment than we probably expected a year ago or 2 years ago. Let's move on to our next option, Real Madrid, who aren't necessarily looking for a manager this summer. Depends largely on how the rest of the season goes, whether Ancelotti stays or not. Although there are, have been rumours this season about him being interested in that Brazil post. What do you make of this one? Obviously, it would be Mourinho returning to the club that he left, in 2013? God, 10 years ago now. What do you make of this one, Pat?
I find this one almost impossible to see happening. He didn't leave on good terms. And when you look at his work since then, he had a great spell with Chelsea, which ended horribly. A poor period at Man United overall, a poor period at Spurs, and now a good period at Roma, but on just a completely different level from what you'd be expected to do at Real Madrid. And Ancelotti at Real Madrid has clearly created a harmonious atmosphere. He's done a great job there, actually, I think. And it's just such a horrible kind of vibe change to go from Ancelotti to Mourinho. And actually, in recent years, it's not really what Real Madrid have done. Real Madrid have promoted from within. That's what happened with Zidane. It's easy to forget because of the name Zidane. Yeah. But even now, when we're hearing rumours about who they might look at, okay, people talk about maybe Conte, people talk about Nagelsmann, but people are also talking about Raúl stepping up from the Castilla. People are talking about Xabi Alonso coming back from Bayer Leverkusen. Those moves seem much more modern Real Madrid than bringing Mourinho back essentially from the dead. In Real Madrid's eyes. Are we really going to get somebody, oh, well, he won the Conference League and maybe he'll win the Europa? Real Madrid don't care about that stuff. So I think that if I were Real Madrid, I'd probably honestly try and keep hold of Ancelotti. And if he were going to go, then I think I'd probably go for something else. I just don't see that one happening. Him, Perez, and also what's going on at the moment, which is a slow rebuild of Real Madrid. Would you want to be Camavinga or Tchouaméni and see Mourinho arriving? I'm not convinced.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think that's the key thing with Real Madrid. I think this squad is transitioning very successfully in a way that we haven't seen, in about 10 years, really. They are, like you say, it's very much a slow burn rebuild, slowly, replacing the likes of Modric and Kroos. Benzema, of course, that's the next question mark, I think, up front, isn't it? Who's going to be his long-term heir? But everything, is going so, well so far. And unlike PSG, where I feel like there's almost less risk because that squad is, prone to kind of flaring up, every single season. This Real Madrid team seems pretty settled and the dressing room seems in a pretty good shape, morale-wise, at least. But what do you guys reckon at home? Mourinho, do you think he'll leave Roma this summer? And if so, where can you see him going? PSG, Real Madrid, or somewhere else? Let us know in the comments below. That's all we have time for on this week's Continental Club Extra. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching.